most of what's around us is not going to be super detrimental to you. And if you do get it, you're likely to develop a reaction that makes that so it's no longer problematic in the future.
And that is exactly what the immune system is designed to do, and does so well. Until it breaks down, because we've been working against it for so many years.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Space Tomatoes podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Havok.
I'm the other guy, LX. Hello, welcome back.
That other guy. Today we have with us a very special guest, Jeff Feinman, a veterinarian and a holistic connector and educator. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. I love talking about anything with anyone.
Awesome. So you didn't start out as a veterinarian, right?
In the womb? Maybe.
I
was like 4 or 5 when I had this innate desire. I've never wanted really to be anything except an animal doctor.
That is wonderful. Where did you end up going to school for that?
University of Pennsylvania. Actually, the story, do you want the whole story?
Yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah.
I grew up on I'm going to try to say it correctly, on the island, that's not right. Long Island in New York. And we moved during my senior year, what would have been my senior year in high school. And when we moved in the 70s to Tulsa, Oklahoma, it was hard to find the high school that offered classes that were comparable. So I ended up going to University of Tulsa. So I guess I did a year in Oklahoma, then ended up at Penn.
Oh, very wonderful. My wife is actually from Pennsylvania, so yeah. A beautiful, beautiful location. Absolutely. So what was it? I mean, you just had an innate love for animals and wanted to help them, or was there something more specific that drew you to veterinarian medicine?
I think, when I think about it at this level, I was just more simpatico with animals and with their truth-telling and with their energetic purity. And what I learned later in my life is that that I had a real hard time. I was susceptible, to use the language of the book and of medicine, that I was susceptible to other people's energetic emanations. And because animals are pure beings, they drew me toward them. And as I developed as an embryo fetus and then a bigger kid, I got drawn more and more into the natural world, which included, of course, the animals.
Wonderful. So you're an empath of sorts.
Yes. And I almost said unfortunately, because what that has done is, made me open to a lot of the negativity that's all around me, which may be part of why I'm drawn more to animals.
I absolutely understand that.
Animals don't lie like people do.
No, they don't. And they got no agenda. There's no, and they're in the moment. Yeah.
Very, very forgiving too.
Very forgiving.
And there's absolutely something about, whatever you're going through, right? My last few pets, my personal pet has been a Rottweiler. And I love them. I think that breed for me, people get stuck on breeds. I got stuck on this breed just because of everything about them. And there is nothing like the feeling of when I'm down or I'm, even if I'm a little angry about something or upset, I just go lay down on the floor and hold my puppy and cuddle her, and everything is okay. It just literally melts things away. And it's amazing to me what they bring to our lives.
And that is what you just described is the HW transformation. H2O keeps us alive, but H2W is the transformation from the H as in holistic with an H to holistic, where you're actually embracing the H, but also the love and the spirit and the parts of life that actually enlivens life, that allows us to live.
You've probably seen a lot more pets and owners than I've ever seen in my life. Can you tell what kind of pet somebody has just by looking at them? Is that a thing? Do people start looking like their pet a little bit?
It depends. It depends on the individual. There are individuals that uncannily look like their pets, but
I'm not looking at Havok. I just swear I'm not.
I do not look like a Rottweiler, do I?
You do a little. You get that look. You get that look in your eye sometimes.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment then. Absolutely. So you have this holistic approach to things, and one of the things that caught my attention is the beam mesh method. And I think this is something that I've never studied. I didn't know that it was a thing, but it's something over my lifetime. I don't think there's ever been a time in my life where I didn't have a pet. And one of the things that I started to key into is, maybe not a full-blown approach or any kind of like real information behind Beam, but the initialism really started to play into, like, I can tell. Like a mother can tell when there's something wrong with their child. I can tell. And it's, luckily for me, in most cases, it's been something that I've been able to catch fairly early because of that. Can you describe to us what the Beam approach is?
You just described it beautifully. I mean, that is the essence of it, and it is what really puts that W in holistic versus the H, because we're focusing on quality of life and love and all things that really make us happy instead of symptoms. Because everything in medicine, veterinary medicine, human medicine, is based on symptoms, labels, diagnoses, what can go wrong with the body. Holistic medicine, what we're talking about, is what is possible by the miracle of our bodies, of our animals' bodies, of life all around us, because the smartest doctor in the world engineered it that way. We have it built in. Every living being has it built in. That ability, that innate ability to heal.
That's wonderful. And what it stands for, behavior,
energy,
appetite,
and mood.
Appetite and movement, right? Okay.
Mood,
behavior,
mood, which is often reflected in the behavior. But you described the mood aspect beautifully, in that you just know. They look at you, and will that mood often reflect in their behavior of isolating or getting clingier? Or it's very possible. That's why holistic versus holistic is individualized. There are no protocols. The protocol is it depends. It depends on the individual. It depends on the context of what's going on.
So how do you bring that to, let's say, a new client, right? You don't necessarily know the pet, they do. How do you open that up with a new client and help them to give you the information you would love to have?
I'm going to be honest, my friend. It's very, very, very difficult. And that's why I started Whole-istic Actions almost 10 years ago, because now all my clients have already been educated via Whole-istic Actions, where we teach these holistic methods that we're talking about. And that, all you really have to do, you don't have to have joined us, at the Whole-istic Actions, but, read the blog about Beam, or really any of the things that, I discuss. It always goes back to Beam, whether it's a sunbeam, because the sun is an awesome healing agent, whether it's but that balance beam that we're walking, that allows us to stay balanced, or beams that are the framework of the system that we're talking about. Because this is, in essence, what's called scientific wellness, meaning that the science behind all the actions is there not only to support you, but also to give you a roadmap to being the best you can be, being the best an animal can be, giving them the best life possible. And it starts with Beam, because Beam is the reflector of along that road.
What would you suggest for somebody that, for my case, a couple months ago, we had a little black cat show up in our backyard. Know nothing about her. She's hiding in the back, under the shed, and barely comes out. And we started feeding her, and we did take her to the vet. That was quite the ordeal all in itself. We had to lure her in there, and she did not like that. And they had to sedate her just to examine her in the first place. But what would you suggest to somebody just that runs across a situation like that? Do you have any words of advice?
Listen. The first thing that we do in a situation like that, whether it's a feral cat or a lion, or it's just quiet your mind, listen, tell the kitty, in your mind that it's okay, that you're not going to hurt it, that it's safe. And then, maybe as atraumatically as possible, capture it in a have a heart, and then transport it. But the question I would have is, why did you think it needed care? Was it sick? Was it traumatizing? I don't ask that in your situation, but
right.
The first thing you may want to do is say, do I need to intervene here? Do I need to do more than get quiet and listen?
Right. In our case, she was sneezing and had a runny nose and drippy eyes, and we figured she probably had some kind of upper respiratory going on. We don't know how to deal with that at home, and that's the main reason we brought her somewhere else.
That's perfect, because that's a beautiful example of what you said. We didn't know how to deal with her at home, and you don't. You just trust flaw of balance that it probably was upper respiratory infection. It's going to either rebalance or get sick. If the kitty cat is old and sick, it may succumb to that, but it might be better for that to happen than to be scared to death by being dragged to the vet and sedated. Yeah. And I just have a rescue dog now that I've spent 1.5 years trying to instill safety in, that things are safe.
Wow.
And she still would try to kill you, literally. She's the sweetest girl in the world, but if she thinks you're trying to hurt her, she will, attack you. Talk about Rottweilers. We have trainers that work with police dogs. They say half the police dogs don't have the drive to kill you. They walked up to the door, and the dog almost went through the window trying to get them.
Wow.
Wow.
And that was from lack of safety, because she is such a sweet girl in every other situation. But she's still, very protective. So I guess, again, it goes back to it depends. It depends on the individual. And I want to go back to that, because the essence of scientific wellness is individuality. And it's made up by what's called P4 medicine, or 4Ps, and the first P is personalized. So that's where we're going, guys. Let's go into that place of personalized care for our animals and ourselves. And the beauty is that we have the ability to do that ourselves. And unfortunately, right now, the mainstream medical doctors, veterinarians, but I have to say more so veterinarians and doctors, because there are some doctors that are seeing the light. That light is healing, and they're even prescribing nature therapy, and and now I'm getting way off base from what you asked about. Sorry, that's my brain, my own brain issue.
I don't think you. I honestly don't think you are. I think you're so spot on target. It's like one of our Great Pyrenees, and we didn't recognize this. It was a very tough one because they're very stoic animals. I mean, extremely stoic animals, and we didn't know, but some of the long grass seeds, you know what I'm talking about, the ones that Barb, had gotten into the top of her paw, the fur, and worked into her paw, and it had abscessed. And by the time we had seen it, the reason we saw it was there was discoloration on the fur, and she was not showing any signs of any trouble whatsoever. And so cut away some of the fur, and there was an open abscess. And, the original thought for a lot of people in that occasion is, okay, we've got to go to the vet. And I went down, looked, squeezed really hard, make sure we didn't have any kind of like a, bot fly or something like that larva. Did not, and, got some material out of there from the grass seed. And then, the next thing was, okay, well, we need to go grab Neosporin. And I'm like, whoa, let's not put gasoline on this. And I mean, literally, instead, let's reach for the colloidal silver. Right. And I think there's within 2 days, the infection and the soreness and swelling had gone away by using colloidal silver. And I think there's a whole lot of need to get people to understand that there are mechanisms that you can use to help heal, to, further the health, happiness, and longevity of animals that are natural, that you don't have to go buy a pill or a cream or something like this. You can use a natural functional medicine in a lot of cases.
Absolutely, and that is the essence of holistic medicine with nature. We always try to use natural things that support the body while it heals, because we know very well that we live in a state of that our animals, that all living beings are in a state of dynamic equilibriums. We're always changing, and we're always trying to attain or regain balance. So you knew intuitively that even though your dog had an injury, his beam was fine. So you can try little local measures like you did, and that works at 80% of the time. I'm sure that if your dog was hiding and stopped eating and wanting to be, left alone, you would have gone to the vet much sooner. Even without a problem. Sometimes that's, oftentimes a change in beam is you really need to go to get an early diagnosis. And unfortunately, and this is where we're going to jump off on, unfortunately, you can often see a change in beam. Go and have all the diagnostic tests, and they're all normal. Yet your animal is still sick. What do? Well, in veterinary parlance, we have you just wait and get back with us in a couple of weeks or months to see if they get sicker, and then we'll be able to figure it out, because we know they're going to either get sicker or it's going to go away.
Right.
Yeah,
if you don't mind me asking, for a little advice while we're on the subject of alternative things. So the little kitty in our backyard, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here. She recovered from her upper respiratory perfectly. They did give her a course of antibiotics that we put her on. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But she did end up having a recurring, or assuming a UTI thing, where she's squatting, trying to pee several times, and little tiny amounts are coming out. And we called them back. I really didn't want to put her through dragging her back there, since it was such a hard time for her. We only give her wet food, and we try to add a little water in there to hydrate her more. And we got some D-mannose powder. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Yep.
Is there anything else that we can do at home before dragging her all the way back there and putting her through that?
You are so far down the road of being on the right path. So yeah, the extra water, the wet food. Do you add water to her diet?
Yeah.
Mix
So
water
she
in?
lives out back. We're in Florida. Yeah, I stir it in her food, give her extra, and we pay the extra money for the urinary formula food. It's more expensive. I don't know if it makes any difference or not, but that's what we've been doing.
Well, now we're delving into the fact
We're going to get on the food subject later.
Yeah, well, no, it's all related. That's the problem. It's all one, because we're talking about vitality. Vitality in commercial canned processed food is low. Vitality in fresh food, raw food, real food is high. So what does she need to optimize her immune function? As high of a vitality as possible. How do you ensure that? By the food, by the supplements that support her instead of suppress her, but also by giving her things to do that she loves to do. Because when you give a cat, a dog, or any animal or person a purpose in life, a joy, then our bodies begin running like Ferraris.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, food's a big one. I know, like for us, our puppies love salad night, which is probably 4 times, 5 times a week. No, they really do, because they get cucumbers and maybe a little bit of cheese, a little bit, bell peppers, and different treats on their food that they absolutely love, and we love doing that for them. So it's one of their highlights. They get a little treat. We're happy. Everyone's happy.
And that is what it's all about. I mean, animals live to be happy, to be enjoyed, to love you, to love being loved, to eat, and to play. So we eat, play, and love. Not eat, pray, love, but eat, play, love.
It's pretty close.
It's pretty close, yes. Well, yeah. Many, yeah. Don't want to go there, yeah.
You're talking about the food, and I know on my own journey, my diet has made a significant change in my health, and I'm sure it's the same for animals. I'm sure none of that commercial food is what you would consider good. Well, do you have a suggestion for people to feed their animals? Do you think raw diet is like the way to go? But I mean, it's much more difficult, and I'm sure it's much more expensive for people to go that route.
Actually, the amount of money you end up saving on medical and veterinary bills.
That's a good point.
I know a lot. I began this journey, the online part of the journey, because somebody had contacted me with their dog that had chronic diarrhea all over the house. Unfortunately, at that point, I was so backed up. By the time I got back to them a week or 2 later, they had already put the dog to sleep. Because the dog had seen a dozen veterinarians, vet specialists, and none of them put the dog on a raw food, a fresh food diet. Because when you're going from vet to vet to vet, you're getting second opinions. You're not getting a different opinion. And I'd like to, right now, apply a different opinion to your kitty with the upper respiratory. Because our establishment, the way we are right now, is focused on the germs as the bad guy. germ theory. Ever since good old Louis Pasteur turned us on to pasteurization and, commercialized the whole process, then germs became evil, and there grew up a whole industry, to fight them. Well, at the same time as Louis was developing his theory, there was a whole bunch of doctors developing what's called the terrain theory. And the terrain theory says that if your inner balance, as defined by your terrain, we can go into what all the pieces are. If your inner balance is high enough, you're not going to be susceptible to the germs. So the germs do not matter unless you're susceptible. I'll give you a negative example of an individual or an animal with no immune system. They can be killed by staph bacteria on their bodies, no matter what antibiotics are given, because the antibiotics can only work if the immune system is able to do its job.
Yeah, and I think there's a huge amount of value in terrain theory. Actually, while I will say that Pasteur did bring about some significant knowledge in certain spaces, I also have a personal dislike for the man because of why do we pasteurize everything? Like, we just take all of the nutrients and amino chains and everything and kill them and then give us this food that is a fraction of what it was, sorry.
But we did that episode on raw milk, and we had a few dissenting opinions on that. People tell you're going to die.
Exactly.
The government tells you shouldn't drink that.
I pick up a gallon of it every week on my herd share, and I consume it and make yogurt from it, and I'm doing well.
But you never know. There's a risk. There's a risk in being alive.
That's true.
There is, but
the dogs I know that have choked on food, I have people that say, don't eat raw bones, they're going to choke my dog. The dogs I know in 41 years that have choked on food have been dry food, dry kibble.
Yep. Yeah, and raw bones are not bad for dogs. Canines are developed specifically to be able to handle these. And yes, even chicken bones, it's once they're cooked that they can splinter and become sharp. But even then, in most cases, I would say that's not problematic for a dog, or probably not a cat either, right? But again, uncooked, raw chicken bones, without question, you have no problem there. They're not going to cause a problem for your dog, promise. If I could just show you how many chickens one of our dogs has eaten, and turkeys, I'm telling you right now, not a problem.
On purpose or by accident?
Well, one of our chicken pens and coop is so we have about an acre fenced in for our dogs with fencing for them, and then behind that is a raised bed garden, and then behind that is the chicken pen, right? And this is for our layers. And they get to go into the raised bed garden and clean that up at the end of the season and fertilize and turn the soil and eat the weed seeds and all that good stuff. But there's only a fence in between them. And while they're not proficient flyers, they can jump up on a pretty tall fence. And they like to jump into the yard sometimes. And sometimes we can't see them every time. And boy, that dog does. So I feel very
mighty
bad
tasty,
about
I'm
that.
sure.
Yeah, I feel very bad about that. We don't like that, but it's an unfortunate consequence of them living in the same area, Dogs are dogs, they have, this innate desire to hunt for food.
Yeah, our dogs did really good on the raw food thing. When we don't have our dogs currently, but they did really good. I noticed, and it's going to sound weird, but the poop was a lot less, and and we tried to scoop the yard, but like if you missed it, it biodegrades a lot faster than when they were eating like kibble, for say that stuff that just wouldn't go away. You'd have to scoop it. Oh. So anyway, that's done with the poop talk now.
that reminds me of what was the movie Super Size Me, where the guy put out the French fries and they never went bad over months and months, and I think it was years and years. And of course, he got very sick by eating processed food only.
Right.
Yeah, 30 days of nothing but McDonald's, and he was not in great shape afterwards. Just 30 days. Yeah, that was an eye opener right there. Yeah, and that's, as LX had said, both of us, we grow quite a lot of our own food. We raise, a good portion, I guess, of our food as well, and we tend to patronize farmers markets as opposed to supermarkets. And if we do go into a supermarket, only the outer walls is what we look for, because that's where the produce and the meat and the dairy is, and the inside is all packaged stuff that it's poison. Let's just be honest, it's poison.
Why do you think supermarkets do that? Have the good stuff on the outside? Is that because they want you to have the good stuff?
No, it's because most people go down the aisles and then they end up on the outside and then they turn around and go back down the next aisle.
Yeah, that's what I think as well, that it's much more economically feasible to do it that way. There are a lot of people that don't ever go to the outer limits of the market.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me, like when we will go shopping, you'll see people come with, and I'm not against this, right, in general, right, frozen vegetables. I think if we freeze a lot of our harvest because it does, keep them and maintain them in a healthy state. Sometimes texture is off, but we work around that. But the number of people that I see that will go in and bypass the produce section and then go buy a bag of frozen broccoli. And I'm like, but there's like fresh right there.
But it's more expensive.
But it's easy.
Yeah, and more difficult.
It is more expensive. Yeah. But it's also not processed.
Though I do have to say that frozen is probably the best way for, if the broccoli is in season where you live and it's not being shipped across the world, then yeah, fresh local broccoli, you have to go to your local farmers But, if it's the heat of winter, then yeah, you're probably going to end up buying your broccoli, your peas, whatnot, frozen. Unless you're lucky, like we have, a farm.
We actually grow broccoli in the winter. So what we've found over years, decades, I guess, of me growing vegetables is so brassicas. That's your cabbage, your broccoli, your Brussels sprouts, things of this nature. They don't like summer at all. They do not like summer. So what we've found is if you plant in late summer, and even if you're late to the party, they will withstand pretty harsh winters. Really, like 24 degrees before you even have to cover them. And what I found is, although they don't grow, they just sit there. You don't really have to do anything to maintain them until the spring for the most part. Maybe every once in a while a little water, but keep in mind the evaporation isn't happening. And then very, very, very early, before spring really, or right when spring is starting, they're ready to harvest. And they are, I've had, like, our neighbor actually came and said, what did you do with this broccoli? How did you grow this? I want to know. And I said, we just overwinter them. And he was like, that's the best broccoli I've ever had in my life. And I was like, it's that. Carrots, same thing. Carrots overwintered are sweeter. They're just amazing. So, but yes, I agree. And I think eating in season, local in season food is without question better for you. Even if it's I have this kind of weird theory that our bodies are made to eat what should be in season in geographies. And I think even if it's, super fresh and, unadulterated, organic, great food that was grown in a climate that was, good for it at that time and then shipped to you even overnight, I think your body doesn't have, I think we go through a cycle throughout the seasons, right? And I think your body isn't expecting to get that and doesn't make full utilization of the nutrients in the food because it's not supposed to be eating that right now.
Very, very wise, and again, very intuitive, and also the basis of the framework for Path to Pet Wellness and the framework of Ayurveda. Because, the Ayurvedic docs are all very, very much on board with eating, or if you want to bring it up to date, eat right for your type. It's, it's a subset of that. But yes, it's known in Ayurveda and Chinese medicine for thousands of years that eating the right foods can be helpful or harm you. But what we're talking about today is how to mitigate that harm no matter what you eat. Because I think there's a very easy way that everyone can learn and should learn to do that. What you heard today really to spread the word that we all have within us the ability to maintain that balance in ourselves and our animals better than a trained medical professional. That's good for when you have something that you need to figure out, what's going on. But the majority of the time, when you look at it, before medicine was as developed as it is right now, look at the pioneer people as they began to go west in this country. The moms were the doctors, the family, the mom, and they used this wisdom. They used working along with the smartest doctor or Dr. Mother Nature. They knew that working along with her was the way back to health for them and their family and their animals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and we can do the same thing today, but we have the hard part is breaking free of our mindsets that basically bring us back automatically to fear and anxiety and uncertainty and all things that our animals don't have.
Yeah.
They're not worried about, there's this treatment or this diagnostic label. My diagnosis, I'm not supposed to live for long. Well, I don't know if you know Bernie Siegel. Does that name ring a bell? He wrote the first book about this, one of the first called Love, Medicine, and Miracles back in the 80s. And that was about how love, harnessing the power of love, can perform medical miracles, which he's seen now for, almost 75 years. And Bernie had a dog that had an inoperable terminal cancer. Went to the vet. The vet said, well, Bernie, you've had a lot of animals. It's time to put this one to sleep. But the dog was still wagging. The beam was still high. Bernie was given one call. So Bernie called his son, and his son said, Dad, we don't just put our animals to sleep because they have a bad diagnosis. So Bernie brought the dog home against the vet's advice, gave food of love, fresh food, happiness. He lived another couple of years.
Wow.
That is awesome. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just thinking that you're talking about pet euthanization. That has to be one of the hardest parts of being a vet. For me, I don't think I could do the job simply for that fact. I get too emotional, and I don't know that I would be able to handle that. How have you been able to handle that personally on your path in this career?
Yeah, that's a great and very deep question that I will only answer superficially right now, and that is, it is very, very hard. And euthanasia and the need to euthanize is one of the top causes for compassion fatigue in veterinarians. So I guess the superficial answer is that many of us just, we have to put that in a box.
So to compartmentalize it in a way.
Yeah. That we have done the best that we can do, and that now the best we can do is to help them pass. But, if you ask me to reframe that situation, because you did ask me what my path is like now, that's not the path I'm walking.
Yeah, I think I would have to just refuse. I would just be like, we offer all veterinary services except that.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I do recognize that there are times when there is a need for that. My wife's previous Belgian, Gronendale, had a hemangiosarcoma rupture, and this happened. Nobody knew it was there. Her beam was off the charts. I mean, this dog was insane, right? I mean, active, beyond active, appetite, everything was fine. And then apparently this had been there and nobody had noticed, and it ruptured, and literally within hours it was. And so we brought her in, and they said, we just asked, is there anything you can do for her that will allow her to have a night with us at home so we can show her how much we love her? And so we got to do that. And then, by the next morning, she was not, it was just not good. And it was an unfortunate thing, but we both felt that at that time it was probably better than having her suffer for another day or two.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, no.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring that up. It just
that's always a hard topic to discuss, and that's why my path now has brought me more to the path of alignment. Aligning with life. I see life has really just a spectrum of birth to death. So death is not the opposite of birth. It's part of life, and that involves walking along with them throughout all their stages, when they're young, when they're middle-aged, and when they're senior. And now there's a very, very big and growing movement towards natural death of animals. Relieve suffering as it needs to be relieved, but don't just, I'll give you an example. I had a 16-year-old cat for many years. She was diagnosed with hyperthyroidism and kidney failure years ago. Through diet, love, and homeopathy, she's lived the past couple of years like a normal kitty. She's actually faster than I am running for her food. But then one day she stopped wanting to eat, and she started hiding in the closet. So we respected what she was telling us, and as spring arrived on March 20th, Tiggy took her last breaths. So that's the cycle of life. Death and rebirth is just really natural. So are we working along with that natural doctor, Mother Nature, or working against her? So yes, I think that if suffering cannot be relieved at end of life, that's the way to go. But I think if more vets had the natural dying process training that is now available, that compassion fatigue will become less and less over time.
That'd be a good thing.
It would be. I really, truly believe that. I think there's a lot of room for that. I really do think that. And I think that's wonderful. So you're I'm trying to formulate my thoughts as they're kind of jumbled for the moment. Sorry about that. I kind of lost my rhythm there for a moment in the previous discussion. So your whole-istic and your holistic approach involves diet and beam and obviously love. I mean, if you have a pet, they are a family member. They're like your children. You should always be, there should be a connection and there should be love, right? But I guess, how do you introduce people to this approach? Is it something you step people into, or do you just kind of, here's the fire hose, stick it in your mouth, let's turn it on?
I think no matter what we do, we need to meet people where they are. So there are people that are ready for, here's a whole framework, read this book, and you'll be all set. That's really all you need for self-care forever. But the vast majority, it's a slow stepping process, and that's why, we try to introduce things gradually at Holistic Actions. Because, the very biggest complaint, because what we've done with our platform is reframed, all the diseases, all the bad things. We've reframed that in the paradigm that we're talking about. And I think that the biggest complaint we get is people seeing all of that being available and getting overwhelmed. So they're being fire hosed. Then we need to really drip it out to them more gradually. And that's actually what we're doing this year. Because we spent 9 years fire hosing it, and this year we're dripping it out.
So where do you start? Is there a natural starting place, or is it different for everyone, or...
Where do we start? It should ideally be different for everyone. Ideally we'd start with your questions. So what can we apply in the bigger framework? What can we apply to your kitty with an upper respiratory or UTI or skin problems, or how does it apply? How do we reframe fleas? How do we reframe the preventatives that we give? How do we reframe vaccines? Everything pretty much that we talk about. So that's the way of not answering your question about where to start, because where we started this.
You hit on a lot of points that I'm very curious about, especially the flea treatment. Since our indoor cats aren't so much of a problem, but her living outside, I feel terrible for her, and I hate putting that what's essentially poison on her to kill those bugs, but she just gets all scabbed up and she's itching like crazy, and I feel terrible for her. She could come inside if she wanted to. She doesn't really want to, so maybe someday. But anyway,
and she probably would not allow you to flea comb her without a lot of stress, right?
Probably.
If you could, that would be the first action that you would do, and otherwise you just have to say, well, she's a wild cat, just like a cat on the savannah, and they're gonna have bugs, they're gonna be mangy, they're gonna be scrawny, they're never overweight. They never have dental disease, they never get cardiomyopathy. You don't see too many with diabetes eating too many carbs or eating dry food. But yeah, you're right. Some have fleas and are mangy.
Yeah.
So you did mention the vaccine thing a little bit. Is there a place? Because I'm sure most vets believe in vaccines, and even I think the county ordinance requires it. But for our instance, for the indoor cats, I personally don't give ours the vaccine, so we never have, and I don't think there's a real need for it since they don't go outside. But I'm sure you have an opinion on that for yourself.
Actually, I don't. I do not, because there is no opinion. Vaccines work. Vaccines have a place, but vaccines are widely overused in animals, and we've jumped on the bandwagon finally in the late 70s where we started modifying the annual vaccines. In Florida, they're getting every vaccine every 6 months in some clinics. That because of our fear of germs. And that brings us back to the terrain. And Havok, you said that the terrain, and Louis Pasteur, not so much in the terrain, yeah. But actually, I think that a hybrid theory is correct. I think that germs can be a problem if they're virulent enough and if there are enough of them. But that situation of being in the middle of a pandemic or epidemic, it's pretty rare. I mean, I walk outside, I get exposed to Lyme disease almost every day. And all kinds of growing, pathogens. But again, the view that we're talking about, the holistic view, is that the world is a whole. That we live in an ecosystem, and that ecosystem contains insects, contains bugs, contains bacteria, etc., etc., etc. So, we're looking at a bit of a reframe, a mindset shift. We're working to blow your minds. We're working to disrupt all of everything we ever learned. No, not really. Just kidding.
No. Well, it's like children, right? Children are little petri dishes. They're designed to be petri dishes. Their immune systems are bulletproof, barring any other factors, right? Immune deficiency disorders or something of that fact, right? Which, I don't know enough to be, to have an educated opinion other than to say that I do believe, from what I've read, that there are genetics that come into play and can have, it doesn't matter, right? But barring that, they need that petri dish experience, right? And it's like, I had this discussion with someone a while back, and they were like, "Oh, I don't do hot tubs," and I was like, "Why?" And they said, "Legionnaires," and I said, "Well, you're actively carrying Legionella all around with you right now, guaranteed. If not, you've absolutely been exposed to it. It's only problematic when it's in dense enough quantity to cause you." An overload where you can't fight it, right? And I think we have gone, I don't sanitize my counters. I don't use bleach in my house. I'm not, there was a time where I was a lot more, not a germaphobe, but, still a lot more, everything has to be sanitized and cleaned. And I honestly believe that that's more detrimental to our health in general doing that. Again, barring external factors. If you've got an immune disorder, then that may be something you necessarily have to do. I don't know, right? I'm not going to make an educated guess. But I imagine, for me, I think it's the same for dogs, for cats, for horses, for everything else. If you're in a healthy state, you're intaking healthy, nutrients, most of what's around us is not going to be super detrimental to you. And if you do get it, you're likely to develop a reaction that makes that so it's no longer problematic in the future.
And that is exactly what the immune system is designed to do, and does so well. Until it breaks down, because we've been working against it for so many years. And yeah, and I rolled my eyes a little bit when you said genetic factors, because we've learned that genes are, a fraction of what makes us who we are. But yes, some of those kids are indeed born with genetic, catastrophic immune failures at a young age. I myself received immunoglobulin when I used to run 105, 106 fevers. And the hospital wasn't able to bring it down, so I ended up getting immunoglobulins. Did that predispose me to develop? Well, that's another story, yeah. But, P.S., when I got Lyme disease, confirmed Lyme disease back in 2001, I had 105 fever again, and that fever, along with homeopathy, did indeed burn off the Lyme. And I was fine without antibiotics by the next day, and that was 25 years ago. Wow, gosh.
Time flies, doesn't it?
I know, right? 25 years. It's like we used to call it our QC birthday when we were growing up, our quarter century.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like, you know, we treat fevers as though they're something bad, right? But they're, at least from what I've been able to uptake in you know, reading literature and as well as papers that have been published, that's your body's natural response, and it's healing. It needs that. And, you know, if you let it happen, things tend to progress towards healing a lot faster than if you suppress it.
Yes, that is for sure the case. And we know that, you know, let's look at a child that develops a high fever, and we used to give them aspirin. What would have to remember what happened back when we used to give kids aspirin for fever? They develop liver disease. They develop Ray's syndrome.
Right,
They
yes.
develop, which is why we moved over to the less effective anti-inflammatory, because now we're getting into the world of antis, working against the body. You know, acetaminophen also can lower temps, but not as effectively as, you know, aspirin necessarily.
Aspirin,
yeah.
And
Sorry.
For anyone interested, turmeric is more powerful than almost any anti-inflammatory medicine available on the market. And if you press your doctor on that, at least mine said, yeah, like he didn't, I had a broken collarbone, and afterwards, you know, he was handing all this stuff, and I said, no anti-inflammatories. He looked at me, he goes, you told me you're taking turmeric. You have a tea that you make that has turmeric and ginger and all this stuff in it. And he goes, I don't have anything that's going to work as well as that. He said, just keep doing that. And that was, to me, refreshing, because like, oh, you want another prescription? Here you go. How many would you like? Sorry. Not to bag on any doctors at all, but, you know, hey.
It's just the way it is. I mean, unfortunately, that is just the state of the art. That is what we call the standard of care. Because what we're talking about, guys, is below the standard of care. Meaning that, you know, optimizing your terrain, your immune system, your vitality, fresh food, all these things are below. But when you join them with the conventional, you know, having a vet examine them and do the diet, then they raise up the standard of care. And that brings us back to your question about where do you meet people? And in January, we met a whole new group of people with the month about how to get the best from both worlds. Month 2 was the path to pet wellness. So how do you do that without necessarily using only conventional holistic care? And month 3 was a month about OM. OM as in the universal sound OM, but OM for us stands for One Health Medicine. One Health Medicine is the paradigm that connects us all together with what we're talking about. It's the same way that every indigenous group around the world for thousands of years have lived. I studied with a Native American grandma. And, you know, we talk about this stuff all the time, you know, because we are so like-minded. And when I bring up the fact that, you know, we're talking about mitochondrial metabolism and molecular, she's like, whatever. The creator said the creator is amazing. And that's the bottom line, is that the creator has instilled this vital force in us that allows us to be alive. And that no doctor in the world, except for that one, could reproduce a living being and keep us alive. Because our vital force, our life force, our energetic selves, that's what allows us to be alive. And this is in the woo-woo world in a lot of places, but I'm going to bring it back to quantum physicist, Nobel Prize winner named Schrödinger, who wrote a book called What is Life? In 1944. And granted, he was a physicist and not a biologist, but darn, he nailed it, except for that one thing that we're calling the vital force that we can now call the consciousness paradigm. He called it negative entropy. So entropy is that physical law that we're basically designed to die. That we're designed right away to become part of the universe.
We're essentially breaking down from the moment we're born, right? And that's that. If I encapsulate the concept of it, that's kind of the idea behind it. So that is wonderful. Yeah, that is neat. And so you have some study in molecular biology, right?
I do. That was my initial, if you remember from the beginning, I mentioned, my childhood was maybe not the best, and I was in the lab. I decided I wanted to be in the laboratory, not among people. So when I say my childhood, I'm referring to, my interactions with other kids, and I was always a little bit more with the animals than with people. But so that drove me to molecular biology, because I could become a molecular biologist and still be a veterinarian. So that's what I did. My first couple of years I spent in the lab working in molecular biology when molecular biology was first beginning to get discovered. In fact, the lab that I worked in was a medical school's biochemistry lab, and what we worked on was individuality. But it was individuality on a cellular basis. So what allows cells, individual cells, to be unique? And what we discovered and what was known and what we elucidated further was that there are little toll booths on the surface of every cells, and they're called toll-like receptors. And they sense everything going on in the environment. And they help determine what you bring into the cell, what nurtures you, and what may harm you. Keep out what harms you and bring in what nurtures you. So, yeah, I guess my molecular biology career went from the cellular level to the whole organism level.
Yeah, I actually, that discussion just brought back some old information from my college days on cell receptor site theory, and it was, mind-blowing, amazing stuff, really, really amazing, also very complex, extremely complex.
It certainly is, and I am so impressed that you have that kind of background, because most bios background nowadays, or regular general science backgrounds, don't include that. So bravo to your school system.
I was lucky to be at UCI, so.
It sounds like you're very knowledgeable in cellular biology, and I heard you mention mitochondria. Do you have any experience with red light therapy? Is that something you've done anything with?
I do, and I actually just got a red light therapy mat for my kitty cat yesterday. It just arrived yesterday, so good timing.
Nice, because that's something I'm experimenting with myself. And then I thought maybe perhaps, we haven't talked about this before, but I thought maybe perhaps you might be familiar with it, and it seems you are.
And it seems to have a positive benefit to animals as well? I don't know.
Very, very much so. Yes. In fact, there's a lot of companies out there now that are directing their marketing to the animal, to the pet parent community, and pads, blankets, and whatnot that are custom made for cats, dogs, horses. There are blankets that cover horses and help them heal themselves, because really what we're talking about is just one thing, and that is the self-healing paradigm that we're able to, via energy, whether it's the energy from mitochondria, whether it's the energy from red light therapy, whether it's the energy from a sunbeam, our bodies are able to heal themselves.
No, that's
I'm glad you can give me a little confirmation on that, because I kind of felt like a little, I don't know if this stuff's working, but it was worth a shot. I figured, why not? But it does make me feel better to know that actual professional has a good opinion of it.
And I will add a proviso that every product out there, just like every supplement, is not created equal. So caveat emptor, you need to look at what the wavelengths are and what, are these indeed just lights, or are they helping my body absorb infrared radio? What's going on? Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. And then the company that you bought from would hopefully help do that.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. They actually did a consultation with me, gave me a call, and we went over all the stuff with it.
Awesome.
So they're pretty supportive, and I did a lot of research on the wavelengths and the how many joules and all that stuff before I bought it. But you're right, though, that you can't just go on Amazon and buy the first one you see for the lowest price, because it's probably not going to be as effective as you would hope it would be.
And kudos for you. And I've got to ask you, why did you go outside the medical box to investigate the red light therapy?
Honestly, for my psoriasis. So I ended up buying a red blue light, and even though it said that there was no real medical evidence that it worked, that they said that was the best chance of it working, and some joint pain along with that.
And I apologize. I didn't mean to ask medical questions, but what I'm trying to figure out, and the reason I asked the question is that I'm still trying to figure out why people that are in space that we're talking about right now, why they would choose to use a steroid for their psoriasis instead of going to red light therapy or sitting in the infrared sauna, which has been research proven to help psoriasis more than a lot of the drugs. So the question is, what is it? Fear? Do you think?
For me personally, I'm not into the pharmaceuticals at all. I don't take medications, and I mean, unless I'm dying and they have me strapped to a gurney, I'm probably not going to take them. So I was looking, I've done a lot of change personally with my diet, and that has improved things tremendously. I guess I still technically am diabetic. My A1C was over 11 at one point. Now it's 5.2, diet only, no medication. And I've lost about 120 pounds, and my psoriasis itself has improved dramatically. And I was looking for just that little extra to push me over the thing. And I don't even bother going to a dermatologist, because every time I'd gone there, they want to put me on some kind of biologic, and I'm just not interested at all.
That brings us back to standard of care. So any doctor, whether a dermatologist or a veterinarian or anyone, we can only pass on and do what we know how to do. We just have a limited toolkit. But the beauty is that we have the Home Depot of tools that we can reach for, that our doctors, our veterinarians aren't necessarily reaching for the red light therapy or the colloidal silver or the aloe vera or the other thousands of healing things that our grandmas all knew about.
Right.
Yeah, and there was, I think it was 40s or something like this, but the Western medicine has done a lot to push out and to make woo-woo out of traditional medicines, naturopathy, homeopathy, holistic type medicines. And one of the things that I think, a lot of people put a lot of faith in these doctors, and I don't think that's a bad thing, right? But I think that you need to be aware that you need to advocate for yourself, and you do need to, and I don't mean go, you have to do your own research. You just have to, right? And realize the medical community at large operates on kind of this 95% principle. If you've got X, Y, and Z symptoms, this fixes those symptoms, you are gone. So we don't really worry about the 5%. That'll be like if you come back, maybe we'll try another thing, and if it's still not working, maybe you get a specialist, right? But one of the things that I wanted to know is, a lot of people carry like pet insurance, like VPI or something like that, right? Do they have the same stance on natural remedies as the medical community does, or are they more open to it, or?
They're open to whatever works and saves them money.
Okay.
Quick story. You know that the AMA, one of the reasons the AMA started was because all the best MDs were becoming homeopaths before scientific medicine. Well, the AMA outlawed that. They made it where the homeopaths couldn't even consort with the MDs. But around that time, insurance companies used to give a discount to people that had policies that their main doctor was a homeopath. Because they knew that they would end up saving money in the long run.
Interesting.
And, I've not yet run across by, an insurance company that won't cover homeopathy, chiropractic, or acupuncture. And in fact, more and more now we're covering even our membership, which is just informing and educating people about what their options are.
I think that's wonderful. I would love to see more of that. Okay. Got a question for you. Other than the Rottweiler, because we know that's the best dog, what's your favorite dog breed?
Gosh, if you asked me that a couple of years ago, I'd have to say standard poodles, because that was a standard poodle. I'm allergic to dogs and cats.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's another story. And altogether, though, we can talk about. I know we may be running low, but on time. But so I'd have to back then have said standard poodles, but now I would have to say Heinz 57s. That a rescue dog. The Benji dogs. Exactly.
Yeah.
Probably the healthiest, right?
They are. They suffer from what we call hybrid vigor. Hybrid vigor is a geneticist term that says the more we mix up the genes, the more vigorous we are. The more we concentrate the genes, like in the royal families in the past, the more we're going to see hemophilias, the more we're going to see those fatal genetic flaws that Havok mentioned earlier. So yeah, hybrid vigor is the way to go.
Awesome.
Think about your next dog is a dingo dog. You want a dingo or wolf or
but he can't eat my baby.
But he can't eat your baby. Yeah, we've got a dingo dog. That's why I brought it up. She looks like a dingo, and she
That's
would
beautiful.
behave like one if we allowed her to be her true self. And that goes back to the dog that tried to eat somebody through the window.
That's awesome. All right. We have one question that we typically ask our guests, and what this is throughout our lives there is a person, a historical figure, maybe a 6th grade science teacher that had a profound impact on our lives, and we like to give our guests an opportunity to shout that person out for being influential to them.
I don't know that either one is still. There are two actually. One two-legged and one four-legged. The two-legged one happens to have been my 5th grade science teacher, Mr. Callahan.
Wonderful.
And I actually tried to reach him years ago, and and the other is my dog, ex-dog Archie, who inspired the Pet Wellness book, and who's still with me and here with me, and brought me my new rescue, who's here to teach me the lessons that Archie started teaching me, and 7, 8, 9 years ago now.
That is amazing.
That is amazing.
Well, what do you have going on? What are you working on? Where can people find you? Where can they find your book? Is there a better place?
Yeah, where can we get that book?
The book is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever you buy your books. Patronize. You should try to go to your local bookstore, versus buying it at an Amazon. But you can read a lot.
Can you hold it up for us one more time?
Sure, and you can read it. You can read a significant portion of it, and especially I'd suggest reading the one page forward to the book, because that one page really encapsulates where the essence of what we're trying to talk about. And they can find me at holisticactions.com, and I recommend to everyone take the free 101 class. You can't beat the price, it's free, but it will get you at least starting to think in terms of helping our animals to have the best life possible.
That's something I'm definitely going to do then.
Absolutely.
I'm going to check out your book too.
That is wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for giving us some of your time. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate you giving us some of your time as well. You know where to find us. We're everywhere podcasts can be found, as well as YouTube and all the other stuff. So go check us out. Give us a like. Give us a thumbs down if you didn't like it. Leave a comment. Whatever. If you've got an idea for a topic or a guest, throw that in a comment. We will look into it. We'll reply to every single comment we get. And remember, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this, have an amazing day.
Thanks for coming by, Jeff. See you, everybody.
Thank you guys. Great to meet you.